Okay, Sharon, on the agenda items that we're going to discuss is first thing will be the recreational marijuana, the second will be the local transit tax, and then we have letter for council vacancies here. We have 3 of them. So,
Okay.
do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
Yes, I make a motion, we adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, second? That'd be you, Sharon.
Okay, I'll second it. Is there only 2 of us here?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Motion been made, the second. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
I do.
Okay.
I live on, my name is Dirk Tibbetts, and I live on South 3rd Street, 700 block. And my concern is speeding on that street. Maybe not only that street, but that's the one I'm most attuned to. I spent most of the winter in Del Mar, California, and they had a similar problem, and they adopted a resolution to put speed bumps. They called them inobtrusive speed bumps. They are elevation of the asphalt, and then a horizontal area, and then a de-elevation of the asphalt for about, I don't know, 20 feet. It's, you know that they're there. They marked them with white X's, and they also put signs at the beginning and the end of the street. But the street that my son lives on said that they really worked effectively. He has two small kids. And even the bicyclists have slowed down that are riding on the street. They actually give tickets there for skateboarders and bicyclists and those funky longboard things for being on the sidewalk. And so they made, like a bike lane, but they put the speed bumps in those too because they were just racing up and down there, and if you go to cross, then you have to look both ways 4 times. So anyways, that's my comment, and I don't know if it needs to be passed on to someone else or what the deal is, but, and in the winter time, when them kids come out of school on the slick, icy roads, they think it's 80 degrees out. I mean, they're speeding and spinning and racing their motors, and there's at least 8 or 9 little tykes that walk down that street to catch a bus over to 80K. So anyways, that's kind of my comment and my solution to the problem, if you could call it a solution. I just know that it works. I mean, you hit them and you know they're there, and if you go too fast, over 25, they'll jar you.
What community was it?
That was Del Mar, California. And I noticed them, where my daughter lives over in Albany, they have them over there on the mainly residential streets of the area there too. And they have varied them. Some are longer, some are shorter, some are even dips in the asphalt that drain when it rains, because it rains like 90 inches of rain over there. But anyway, it's just something. I don't know how it would be for snow removal. I mean, they'd have to be careful with the snow plows and stuff like that. But I think that's a small price to pay for safety. Done then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to we're going to swap the transit tax and recreational. Start off with the recreational marijuana.
Oh, public comment about another matter, if I may, please.
Okay.
Disc golf has kind of been in development in the community for a while, and there are some grants out. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. This is Elizabeth Chrisley, and disc golf has been under development in the community for a while. There are some grants out. It's very probable there'll be a permanent installation put at Booth Park and at Chandler Park in the very near future. And this year, a nationally known female professional went to the schools and taught the children how to play the game. And there have been a couple of dates out at the Seroptimus Fitness Park where there have been temporary installation days where they could come out and play. They had 50 and 70 people in attendance on those days. And so a group of people who are interested in developing a permanent installation in the Seroptimus Park have connected with, it's the Lake County Development, I believe it is. It's Ken Kestner and Suzanne Stewart are on the board. And they're willing to kind of take this project on and umbrella it just till completion so we can raise funds to get the installation. But before we start raising funds, we would like to approach the board and let you know that we're the town, sorry, and let you know we're wanting to do this, and we know we have to have your approval for any permanent change to the park. So we'd be seeking your approval to do that.
Just a minute. Sharon?
Yeah?
Okay, I just didn't know if you could hear all this or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is she asking for approval for things out at Booth Park or where?
Seroptimus Fitness.
Seroptimus Park. They want to do disc golf out there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
One thing that I have to inquire into is there was an agreement between Pacific Power and the town, and I don't know what it stipulates as far as any other structures or uses.
When we went there, we were told we had to seek approval from you. So if y'all.
You went to Pacific Power?
Bart Snell did, who's been working to develop the courses for some time. He couldn't be here today. So, but if y'all, yeah, just start the whole process if we could. So, that's awesome. Just the beginning, so, thank you.
Okay. All right. As you know, came to us wanting to put in a dispensary on East Street next to the Eagles Lodge. And according to our ordinances, it is within 1,000 feet of the city park. Facility shall not be located within 1,000 feet of real property comprising a public or private elementary, secondary, or career school attended by minors, or within 1,000 feet of a daycare center, public park, or another medical marijuana facility. The facility shall not be located within 200 feet of real property comprising a church. So,
Mayor, may I ask why you're reciting the old ordinance, which has nothing to do with the recreational ordinance that we're discussing today for the work?
this is the only ordinance I have that was printed off.
It has nothing to do with what we're discussing today, sir.
But she's wanting to put it in, and it's within 1,000 feet.
And that,
Okay, what are you getting at?
maybe we should listen to our attorney and maybe he could fill us in. I think he gave us a very straightforward presentation in our work session packet. I read through it and I commend you, Jeff, or Mr. Evan, for.
Ray, you mind if I?
Go ahead.
I kind of gave the council kind of a summary of kind of what the potential ordinances are. Our ordinance does currently only address medical marijuana because at the time that was all that was legal. So with the advent of recreational marijuana, a lot of towns are going to a unified ordinance that deals with both, because honestly the facilities are about the same and you usually see one or the other. There's also a couple of different types of marijuana, different businesses. There's dispensaries, there's production, there's producers, and there's wholesalers. So it's very similar to, food, somebody growing agricultural food, kind of in that, and that's kind of how the state's regulated it. The majority of cities are going to a unified ordinance because, again, it makes life a lot simpler for trying to do code enforcement one or the other. Some have kept it bifurcated, and it's kind of a headache because there's some different rules that apply, and you really don't need to. The other caveat I want to make is that what I've given you in that letter is a range of options. I'm not advocating one way or the other what you guys can do. That's just your range of what you can do one way or the other. So the rest of that is a policy discussion, not a legal issue. So there's kind of your range of what you can do legally. It's up to the council to determine what they're interested in one way or another. But I, again, would recommend, just for ease of enforcement and ease of doing it, that I would suggest an ordinance to replace the other one that deals with both.
And that's one thing that Jeff and I talked about, because everything I kept looking at referred to medical, and that was like, no, we need to make sure that the recreational is included.
Right. And the letter also outlines a couple of basic state requirements that are kind of the floor of what you can do. It has to be 1,000 feet from the school, that's standard. You can't ask facilities to be more than 1,000 feet from each other. As far as site is, if that's the only restriction you're doing. And it cannot be in an area that's zoned for residential use. And those are minimum state requirements.
Well, see, I have a newspaper article that I took out of the Herald News that they introduced a bill on the House to separate them.
That's an introduced bill. If anything, it's not anything that's old state law.
Well, but if you,
It's not a state law. That's
not
what we're
yet,
dealing with today.
but if it becomes one, then
Well,
what?
there's a lot of things that if they become law, then I might leave the state myself, who knows? You know, there's a lot of things that are proposed in our state legislature, but that's nothing for you to worry about right now.
No regulations on marijuana.
I couldn't hear you. Sharon?
Yeah,
Okay, could you repeat that?
well, my problem is that I think Jeff is right. I think we should have one ordinance dealing with both things. But I want the council to remember that when we made the ordinance that you quoted to begin with, that ordinance was for, yes, medical marijuana, but it was also at a time when we opted in. And at that time, we could make our rules a little more stringent, our policies more stringent than the state. And that was our intention, and that's what we did. I don't see the need for saying, okay, now we have one ordinance that deals with both recreational and medicinal, and oh, let's scrap the rules we had before. I still believe in those policies that we set. And if they want to challenge us on them, we'll do it. But I don't want us to drop those things that we set in that ordinance just because now it's going to affect, both medical and recreational use. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that is one option the council has. You can just update the current ordinances that apply to both.
Yes. And I don't want to go back and say, okay, let's change how many feet this and how many feet that. One of the other things that was in that ordinance, if I remember correctly, dealt with the people who work for these establishments. At the time, the state of Oregon did not require any kind of background check on employees. On the owner of the business, which we were pretty sure would be an absentee owner, but not on the people who staffed the shop. And we put that in that they had to have a background check as well, and that we did not want anyone who had a felony, for instance, being, in that kind of a store.
I would also point out to the council that the marijuana business has changed so much, and one thing you guys might want to look at too is what you want to do with the different types of producers, whether it's a retail store, we call it dispensary, whether it's a producer or whether it's a wholesaler, because again, those businesses have different footprints and different, but again, that's up to the council to make the determination.
So, Jeff, do we need one ordinance that will cover all aspects of this as you just listed?
There's a couple of
And 3 or 4?
There's a couple of different options you can do. Some places have only regulated Because again, your regular zoning ordinances apply to all of them. For example, you're not gonna bring in the middle of the downtown, for example, somebody that is
Right.
producing, 20,000 square feet of marijuana plants, because that would regardless of what we do, our local plan has obviously certain zoning zones, and so you wouldn't be bringing, that would be a more of an industrial or commercial use. So one thing you may want to consider is, making the ordinance just specific more to marijuana retail stores and then leaving the state regulations in for the larger outfits, because our zoning regulations and stuff deal with some aspects of those that can be problematic. Plus, there are some fairly stringent state laws on what those larger facilities look like, just because they're more in an industrial situation. So the concern you guys might have might be more to the retail. But again, it's up
The one,
more to the retail store, a
okay,
dispensary or something along those lines. But that's something that the council needs to decide. You can address each one, and some areas have. Some have only chosen, and one in the packet, there's an example of an ordinance from Sutherland.
Right.
They only deal with the retail stores, because otherwise, their regular zoning ordinances already deal with the larger producers, larger manufacturers, larger wholesalers. Again, you're not also gonna bring in a warehouse in the middle of the downtown, for
Right.
example, storing 8,000 tons of marijuana, because it would violate just the basic zoning regulations that are within. So remember, anything that you're doing here is supplementing the existing comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances that we currently have in effect in Lakeview. And anybody that would come in would have to be in compliance with those, regardless of what they did. And if they're trying to do it in a zone, they're not allowed to do it because it's more of a medium or heavy industrial use, then they wouldn't be allowed in the zone anyway. So there might be,
okay.
so you might be reinventing the wheel, I guess is what I'm trying to say, on some aspects.
So actually, we have the medical marijuana, we could just basically add the recreational to what we have here, couldn't we?
You could, but it would be my suggestion, you need to think about, do you want it for all marijuana businesses, or do you want it just for the dispensaries? Because again, a lot of the issues that you might have with the larger ones are going to be dealt with in current zoning regulations.
No, but what he's asking, or I think he's asking, is that we can take what we have and change it to need for dispensaries, because there really isn't a difference now between selling medical and selling recreational, is there?
No, most businesses do
So
both.
what we can do is take our ordinance and change what it relates to and call it good.
Correct, that is an option, if that's what the council is inclined to do.
So what you're saying, Sharon, is the three businesses that have sought to locate here in Lakeview, I know of 3 individuals, and what you're saying is to go with the old rules, which were drawn up to accommodate one location, as you will recall, and that was that of Brad Augustine on 4th Street. And that was drawn up specifically to accommodate that one location under medicinal purposes. Later on, after we came up with the rules of time, place, and manner, which we adopted under that, then the state voters voted in recreational marijuana, which followed what you were speaking of. And yes, and that changed the whole ballgame on all of us. They have now included all of the Oregon Health Authority medical marijuana distributors or retail outlets under the roof of the OLCC, unless they strictly want to sell just medicinal marijuana. That was done by the state. We had no control over it. Now we are stuck with the rules, the state statutes, and that one location is no longer available. I noticed there's activity there. There's people doing something else with that. So where would you propose, and Mayor, where would you propose that a marijuana dispensary, apparently both of you would like to see it hidden in our community, where would you like for it to hide?
There really is no good place, because for the fact is, most of this is residential, and what is commercial is close to schools or churches or somewhere, but, you know, like the uptown or parks.
So you're saying you're open to opening it up?
No,
Oh, okay,
I don't wanna
so
do
you
that.
are, okay, so what you're trying to be right now is unreasonable. And I don't believe the state allows that, do they? Actually,
Is it unreasonable to say that when we opted in because we got to set the policies? And those policies are.
we set policies before we opted in. We opted in after recreational marijuana was okay, the whole different game, and we opted in at that point. We had already adopted the rules that you're speaking of. The ordinance number 802 was adopted way before the state approved recreational marijuana. So the whole game changed. Commercial sales began, and we have no outlet locations for a commercial. I mean, all three of the people that are looking for one cannot find one. It's too unreasonable, and the state says you cannot be unreasonable.
I'm sorry.
Tell me where you want to see it located. That's what I'm asking you. Where?
Our town is built that way.
It's not going to be hidden.
I don't want it close to schools. I don't want it close to parks. I don't want it close to facilities that deal with a lot of children. That was our main thing when we made that. So it's not my job to find them a place to put their store. That's their job.
No, it's our job to come up with. It's our job to come up.
You're unreasonable unless you just want the whole town littered with all 3 or 4 or 5 of them.
Well, I would just say everyone needs to take a big, long look at the circles drawn on the ordinance 802, and you'll note that there is one location that can be used for that, and that is our one spread, and that is, you're going to see the recreational and medicinal marijuana store go up on the present ordinance, right in the midst of everybody that drives down I-40, or 140, I'm sorry. That's it. That's what we've limited it to. So, you tell me where else you want it, and I'm open to discussion, but right now I think we're being very unreasonable.
well, we should,
I'm sorry, is it really viable financially for 3 different stores to open up in Lakeview?
I didn't say all 3 would open up. They've all inquired. They've all inquired, and they've come to town hall and inquired and told people and already gotten property secured, ready to move on this, waiting for us to say we're under state regulation, which we really are right now, and I don't think anybody could argue that. They could come in right now. We have no business licensing process to prohibit them from doing so. We've had contact from people who want to come in here legitimately. They're not trying to come in under the back door policies that you might expect. It's a new industry. It's a new industry to our state, a new industry that's going to provide $100 million every year to our coffers. And some of that money is going to roll into Chief Grindel's office here in a couple of months, I understand, or perhaps by September of this year. It's my understanding some of that money that we opted in for is going to come rolling in off of that dirty marijuana business. It's now legal in our state. But do we want to be the kind of people that shove businesses aside and say, we don't want you? Do you do that to other businesses that want to locate in our downtown community? Is that the kind of pride that we want to take in our community? To say, you're a legal business, but we don't want you. We're going to categorize you, stereotype you. Is that the kind of mayor you are? Is that the kind of counselor you are, Sharon?
I guess so.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'll remember that.
What we wanted and that we should uphold, and I know from the very beginning, excuse me for getting personal, but you are, and you opposed every one of them from the beginning. And now you want to shove it down our throat because then you tell us we're not now publicly, reliable or responsible. You also have accused us of not caring about the welfare of our human people in our community. So no, I don't think I have to agree with you. And I think that we need to look at it. We did those rules for a reason, whether it's medical or recreational or whatever it happens to be, those were in effect. And I'm not willing to go along with any kind of changes until we know exactly what those possible changes, how they would affect our community.
What possible changes are you talking of?
Well, you want to take away every one of the, it sounds to me like every one of the stipulations we put in our original ordinance for medicinal. I'm saying we keep those and add it to recreational.
And where would you put somebody in business in your community, Sharon?
I don't have to put them anywhere. It's not my job. It's not my...
No, let's shut them out by picking rules and regulations that blot them out. Let's not be open to,
Discrimination.
let's be unreasonable, and I think the state will contest you and probably those who would like to locate here, and you'll be up against it
That's
yourself.
good, then I'll turn to my constituents who have feel this way, and I'll say, I'm sorry, the state would not back us.
Why did you opt in, Sharon? Why did you vote to opt in?
So we would have some control over how those facilities came into our community.
And you have that right now if you would be reasonable. You're not being.
Well, I don't see any other options.
Why not? What other options would you like to see? Where do you want it to be located at? That's what I've asked. I'm open to hear from you and the mayor who are here together talking.
Mike, it's not my job to find them a site.
Them.
No, shove them and zone them out to where they can't come
What
in.
then?
That's not too nice.
And you need to be quiet.
I
You
see,
There's
know,
no public comment.
I've never been very nice.
The Dallas is starting to stop.
I see them going down 97 right out in the open.
What, going down 97?
The dispensaries, going through Bend, they're right there on your right-hand
It's
side.
commercial businesses throughout the state of Oregon. Every community that has opted in has them. And they have not tried to shut them out as we're doing.
So what are you saying then?
I propose that we allow this business, which is a legitimate business in the state of Oregon, to locate just like any other business. We don't have business permitting in our community. The state statutes, as I've hollered from the get-go, cover this arena plenty good. We don't need to get involved in it. I would just as soon not sit here and argue on behalf of the state. That's all I'm doing. I'm arguing on behalf of the state of Oregon for statutes established by the voters of Oregon, and I consider myself an Oregonian. And so since I do, and since this community is opted in, I would like to see this community treat people fairly that would like to open a business in our community. And if that's the kind of attitude that our council takes, good luck on locating new businesses in Lakeview, Oregon.
Well, let me ask you this. If we do put one in, and another business come in and see that, and say, well, we don't want to come in here because you have a dispensary here.
Why? Are they stereotyping the legal
Well,
business? I mean, I don't come in here and say, a liquor store is here in town, I'm not gonna locate there, goodness gracious. It's a substance that is legal in Oregon just as liquor
I know it's
and just
legal.
as marijuana is.
I know it's legal.
Do you partake in anything?
I don't take that stuff.
I do.
Well,
What stuff? I said partake in anything. You don't partake in anything, any substance that's legal in the state of Oregon. Okay.
my medications that I have to take.
Okay. Okay.
Roberta, I
Yes.
think we're way past anything we should be dealing with without actually getting some drafts or some kind of things in written form, because this is degenerated to personal attacks.
Okay, and we
What
do
kind of
have
person?
something in front of us from our attorney here, and Jeff is here, but we can draft something and see if that will work. I just need the council's direction.
I would tell you what I think would be fair and would open up our community to not be closed-minded, and that is to stick with state statutes. I would like to see it that way. But if we have to have the set-off from our community parks, then I would say a 500-foot set-off from a community park. That's more than a block away from any community park that we have. And I think that would open up some retail outlets here in our community. And to try to base it on a medicinal ordinance that was established around one location to, where else can they locate, Sharon?
I don't care, I mean, I really don't.
No, draw a circle around every park and every school, and there is no place to locate in Lakeview. That's what I'm telling you.
And by the way, if I'm not on this, is there a quorum?
No, it's a
there
work
will not be
session.
a quorum.
It's a work session, so I don't know.
It's a work session, and I need at least 2 council members here. So,
Okay, so my stand is this, I don't want to make changes, and I don't want us, because usually what we do in a work session is we work out how we want it done, and then we have something to present at the next council meeting to vote on.
You haven't worked out anything. You said only what we already have.
Yes, that, and if you want to change it, I'm going to say, I want to see that in writing, I want to see how it applies, and then I'll talk about going that way, but not until I see it in writing. And if it's a blank, yeah, you can come in and be wherever you want, that's going to be a no on my part. So I want to see it in writing before we go any further.
And state law doesn't allow what you're speaking of anyway, so.
So, okay,
Well, then,
we'll, Jeff and I will.
all right, let's move on to the, we'll do another work session or something. We'll get some things lined out and get some stuff written down, and then we'll all go over it and see what we need to change. But we need to get on to the transit lodging tax.
Before we move forward on this, can I
Yeah.
ask a time frame? Because I recall we've already had a work session that we set aside for this when I asked if we would go with state statutes. It was set aside, then canceled. Here, 2 or 3 weeks later, we have a work session that we're finally having without
Right.
proper attendance. And so what's the time period we're looking at to keep a legitimate business out of Lakeview? What are we trying to do?
Well, we have a council meeting next week,
No,
and I don't
we
think
have budget only next week.
and budget,
So
we'll work on budget next week, so possibly the week after, maybe?
Can I make a suggestion, folks? Why don't we have the council members each come up with a proposal, kind of what they would individually, don't talk to each other outside of this, and come back to the next work session with a proposal of some of the different flavors of regulation, looking at the packet, some of the options you've got, and then that way, everybody is talking up a written proposal, so
Okay, so
people are organized.
We're only speaking of one who has not presented that because we've got 2 that have already said they're holding firm with what we've already got. So we've got one other one, Darwin, who can present that. I'll present mine right now, and that's a 500-foot set off from community parks.
So I think we've got kind of plain, but, and then we may be looking at another council coming on board here, so. But we'll work on that, and our next regular council meeting will be the second Tuesday. We could have a work session beforehand, correct? Review it, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Which did you say, I'm sorry, the second Tuesday of the month of June. And have it at 3 o'clock, so we'll have a work session prior to the regular meeting. Okay?
Okay. Sharon, you don't have anything in front of you on this lodging tax, but
no, I don't, sorry.
it's okay. There's different options here, but they, I'll find where I was at. Well, it says addition, if local government imposes a new tax, it must comply with the 70-30 distribution. Which would, 30% of it would go to like the Chamber for Tourism. And then the rest would come back to the city to put however they feel, I guess, the way I read it.
That's not the way I read it.
Okay, how do you read it? In the general fund?
Yeah, all of the monies come back to the town of Lakeview, and that's for the town of Lakeview to decide how to disseminate those funds.
I guess I do have a question, and maybe you can address this, but where the county has already implemented that ordinance years ago, would this be on top of what the percentage they're getting, or would they continue to get it from the city, the motels and stuff inside the city limits?
And that's something I'm still looking into, to be perfectly honest. It's a little more complicated, because again, most places did it at the same time. So my suggestion is I want to do a little more research on it before I answer that, and I'd like to maybe talk to Stone Falls, a couple of areas that do it, just to see kind of what I'm guessing it's probably a revenue sharing. I think they usually wouldn't want it going too high, but I want to make sure, so I don't want to shoot from the hip on that.
I would say I've already researched it, and I will tell you that the League of Oregon Cities says it's up to the communities involved. And I would like for you to research it some more so you can come back and tell us that it's up to us to enact that and have those monies come to our coffers, not to be used by the county. The county has been usurping those monies for years and years because the town didn't want to do anything with it. Well, now the town wants to do something with it. We talked about it. It was something that we all talked about. It was one of our things that we wanted to work towards, and it can make Lakeview known, not Lake County known.
Right, I think the money should go to the city instead of the county, and I'm with you on that. But what we're trying to find, and if we impose this, then can the county fall back on us for?
I don't think so, because I want to be certain of that before, and again, I would think there's some upper limits on it, so I want to make sure we're clear about what we're doing. I do agree, if you guys are interested in doing it, it's doable, because there's most places did it at the same time. Like I said, it's.
In '88, I think, I do believe is what the LOC told me, is the reason that the town did not receive the transient tax is because they didn't adopt an ordinance, and the county did. And so, but my just question is how we do it, because the county's getting it now instead of the town, so it's just kind of a little bit where we want to clarify.
Yes.
I would think that once the town went ahead and moved forward with its imposition of whatever rate we would see, and it would probably be, I would think, similar to what's been going on, it needs to be looked at to find out exactly what we want to achieve from those funds. But the request at that time come from the chamber, from others who have been utilizing the funds and probably will continue to be able to utilize the funds, but they come to the town of Lakeview to request those funds, not to other entities, when those funds properly belong in the town proper.
Well, do you know why the city opted out?
That's been so long ago. The
Okay.
city's done a lot of things that I didn't agree with in the past.
I didn't know if you knew or not, so.
No, I don't. That was
And
before
I don't either.
my time here. I couldn't start to tell you.
If they just missed it as it was going through.
Didn't realize that it was, didn't realize that there was
Yeah.
Or they
opportunity.
may have gotten lobbied by local hotels. I mean, like you said, without a clear record, it's impossible to know what could have been that. But that's the other thing you may want to seek stakeholders on to see what that would do to hotel prices too.
Well,
It would just, if you offset it, it's just, who would have to step aside would be the county, because if they continue to collect that, then they're the ones that are the bad guys collecting it on top of the people that really should have the funds.
And that was my question, is if they would continue to give it, or if
Then
they
that-
wouldn't because it's outside.
That would be whether they want to continue to be bad guys or be
Right.
bad guys at that point, so.
So we'll do some more research and we'll have that information too,
Mhm.
next
Okay.
work session. Okay, so those two.
No?
And then the other thing is the council.
Mayor,
Yes,
I know that it's never made sense to me why the county collects all of the motel taxes. Not all of the motels in Lake County are in the town, but the ones that are in the town should be our revenue strand. But I do also know that somehow, if we could make this work, the chamber is absolutely dependent on those tax revenues.
And a portion of it does go to chambers.
right.
Yeah, it has to.
So however we work it out, we have to understand that either we continue to support them or we have to say to them, yeah, now the taxes are ours and we're not giving you any, or however that works. But I do know now that they're totally dependent on, they're really running the whole chamber.
And those monies are used for running the chamber, for administration, rather than promotion as called for in lodger's
No,
tax?
I don't know that they take that money and put it in different pots like that, but all of their, activities are basically supported with that. And yeah, part of it does go for salary. Those people are not hired by the county. The county does not subsidize that salary, doesn't offer them any of the perks of county employees at all.
Right, yet there's one employee over there that does the, tourism. If I'm not mistaken, she's over there on the weekends.
Yeah, the welcome center
Right.
funds its own employee, but that's, like maybe 16 hours and it's on the weekend. That's funded by the welcome center people of Travel Oregon. But the director and any other, and the assistant director or whoever is hired there to work in the chamber office is, those are necessary funds to help that, as well as some of the projects and the economic development and those kinds of things that we undertake.
I would say before we discredit the chamber and on the usage of such funds, that we do know before we head into it what those funds are for, and I am almost certain that they are for promotional usage, to have a reciprocal of your lodgers' transient taxes come back through to the community, because you have reciprocal people lodging here, coming to stay as guests.
Do you think I was discrediting the chamber?
Well, no, I'm not discrediting him. I think discussing their business when that's not a topic. They should have an opportunity, just like any organization should have, to come before the town of Lakeview to ask for funding. And that funding would be, I would hope, for promotional usage, as it should be. And then I would also say that them, as well as any other entity, should be able to come to the town of Lakeview. As in the past, they've gone to the county. The county's been the one giving the chamber the money. And as I said before, that will have to change under a jurisdiction of the town.
I thought the split was 70-30 for what, Roberta?
I think the split that was spoken of has nothing to do with you have to give so much to certain entities. I think the split that spoke of there is 70% has to be used for promotion of your community, while 30% has to be used for, or can be used for, other usages, such as perhaps a community center, if we decided that the town needed one that could, you could put funds each year from lodger's tax towards some kind of an account to build something in the future that would take care of our guests in our community, those who are here to enjoy Lakeview. I believe that's what the 70-30 is. I don't think there's anything that says you have to give the chamber or have to give anyone any of your monies. You have 100% of your monies as a jurisdiction of the town of Lakeview, and that's for your dispersal. And that is through request. The chamber comes to you, requests money. The fairgrounds come to you, request money. Other entities come to you and request money. If you so desire to give it to them, and you see reciprocal in what they're doing, so that it will put people back into our lodges here in the town of Lakeview, then that's the achievement of lodgers tax transient funds. That's what they're for. I've worked in many communities with them, and I know exactly what they're targeted to do, and that's to achieve.
Well, I do know the chamber works hard on the Outback and Travel Oregon.
They work very hard, and it's stressed to us many times by the chamber and by the county. It is a Lake County Chamber of Commerce, and those monies are used to promote all of Lake County, and that's fine. I love Lake County. I live here. Just, This is the county seat of Lake County. And in Lakeview, those funds can be used to promote Lakeview. That's what I said. Lakeview's been slighted for a long, long time.
No truth to that.
Well, we'll check and we will get the legal answer and we'll make sure that we have it on paper.
Okay, Sharon,
Yeah,
on the last and final thing, we have 3 applicants here for town council.
okay.
One is Michael Cuff, and one is Patty Newton, And the other one is Sandra Wenzel.
Boy, those last two would be really beneficial. Either of them. They would be my first two choices. Sandra Wenzel and Patty Newton.
Okay. Mike?
I didn't know this was to be voted on, as a work session.
No,
No, it's not.
I'm just letting her know it's there, but, you know.
No, I'm glad to see
You
that we've,
have
I'm
her-
glad to see that we've had 3 interested parties, and
I
I
am
guess
too.
that it will be on our agenda to elect these people.
Next
That's
week.
the next thing, I guess.
Oh, not next week? Oh, we got the budget next week.
It is
Okay. Well, we just need to, all of us figure out who we want.
Folks, just as a point of order, this is actually appointed by the mayor.
Right.
So you guys, this is the time for you guys to weigh in on who you're suggesting the mayor appoint.
In the work session?
This is, no, you guys.
Okay, that's what I'm
you guys
saying.
are-
No, we should, in a regular meeting, when it's something that we're openly discussing.
Yeah.
We took a vote before, didn't we, Sharon, when we had people that would come on? Or are we just leaving it up to, it was a vote before on every time I was appointed. They voted on me.
Yeah.
So we need to look back on the way we've done previous. Maybe we need to change it, I don't know. But
You know,
from,
You can't do it in a work session, you're right.
No, and I'm not suggesting that, I'm just stating technically under the charter, that's where.
once the election is taking place, then the mayor appoints that person. It's the town council's decision. That's what it was, that's the way we've done it in the
We
past.
decide who we would appoint to take the remainder of this term that Tim Harris has left behind.
Right. So we just sit down and figure out which one of the 3 we want.
Yeah. Do you want, Roberta, do you want to set up any kind of interviews or?
That's what's been done before. There's a whole process we've gone through before, and I'm kind of astounded that we're not going to follow it, but perhaps new attorney?
No, I
New game,
think,
I don't know.
we should have interviews.
And you guys ultimately can, it's ultimately, like I said, it's best in the mayor, if the mayor wants input and through that process, you guys are perfectly okay with doing that. So, Mike, what has been the process in the past that you've seen for folks coming on?
I was brought in by appointment, and that was 10 or so years ago. Served for 2 years as an appointed person, and then I've been elected 2 times since. But I, at that time, recall that Sharon and those on the board, with me in the room, took a vote, and there were others who had put their name in the hat, and the vote was decided by the council, and then that appointment was made.
Was the interview done before or during the same meeting?
No, the interview was done before. It was
Yeah, I was interviewed.
individual interviews with each.
Yeah, I was interviewed before, and so was Darwin.
Okay, well, if that's the process you guys would use, there's nothing prohibiting you from using that process for selection.
Well, it may not be correct. If I understand that's what I'm used to, and that's what we've done before.
There is no correct process if the mayor is comfortable doing it that way. So that's why you guys have done it, and you're comfortable doing it that way, then you're perfectly able to do it.
Yeah.
So I would suggest maybe you do the interviews in a work session though, just because those are private.
Yeah.
This isn't something you can do in a closed session, obviously, so.
Yeah.
But that would be probably, you might want to have, some different folks come out of the session and then do it that way and then make your selection that way.
Yeah, because this is the first I've seen of these names, and I guess Sharon doesn't have them in front of her, other than the packets that they provided.
I knew we'd gotten people, but I didn't know who.
So-
I'm like you, I'm impressed that we got 3 viable candidates.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Mayor just got them too, so, yeah, I just wanted to have them, so you guys had a
Okay.
chance to read and review, so. Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else?
So. No,
Why can't we like this?
okay, no, we're good.
Okay, well then, if there's nothing else, I'll close the meeting at 5:52.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Sharon.